Former prostitute Danielle says it can't be a simple story. Have you ever met anyone who is happy doing it?
Never.
So when you read about Ashley Dupree, that portrait painted of her,
This is her way out. So I'm almost happy that she got caught.
why are you speaking with us?
I don't know.
And with all the women we met in this story, there was only one who challenged us on every assumption about cost and suffering working in the sex trade. You're looking at someone who hopes you will never know if she's your best friend, your co-worker. What can we tell you about her? She's beautiful, highly educated. She works in the arts, not a high-paying field. But she has a second career and a double life, answering only to herself. She says she's not a call girl. She does not work for an escort service. She says the men who come to her are among the wealthiest in the country. And they are only there because she decides to accept them. Her term for herself is from another century.
Courtesan, which is a term I hate because it feels to me very anachronistic.
How many clients do you choose then?
Total right now, I would say I have about 7.
Are they married mostly?
Most of them, yes.
Why do they come to you?
The vast majority, I would say, come to me because they miss the intimacy in their personal relationships. And it's not, I see people simplify it to sex, that they're not having sex with their wives. And I don't think it's that. I think many of these men crave physical contact. I think there's also a desire for adventure, a desire for even secrecy. I mean, what's difficult for me, maintaining these secrets. I think for them, it's very exciting. Well, they tell me so much. It's very exciting to have a secret mistress.
What she offers, she says, is like the first flush of attraction with all its sensuality and attention. She just offers it every time, over and over again. How much are you faking?
The sexual experience is something I care about a great deal. So faking it or any sort of theatrics, to me, diminishes the experience.
So what you do for them, you're saying, is not exotic stuff? It's just what?
Kind of wish it were exotic. No, it's very similar to maybe very sexual long-term relationships. They're paying money to enter into a relationship rather than for a sex act.
She says she stepped into the ambiguous twilight of selling sex 6 years ago when a man she was seeing said he had a proposition. She could continue to work in the low-paying job she loved, and he could have her body and time, no complications on either side.
He essentially said outright that he was married. So in lieu of commitment, he said he could offer me money, and he knew that I was in a situation where I needed financial help.
And how did you feel at that moment?
Liberated, I mean, for better or for worse. I simplified it to this very clear exchange of needs, and I'm also a very sexual person.
Yes, but there's something different, isn't there? I mean, you can be a sexual person and at the same time really value the sanctity of your own body.
I don't see the introduction of a transaction or money as decreasing the sanctity of value of my body.
And so she says she selected a few other clients. How much does she make? She wouldn't disclose it, but said her clients are very generous in gifts, jewelry, money. We have no way to corroborate her story.
When I see them, they just give me an envelope or a bag or something, and I put it aside, and then I don't think about it, and we just talk and go from there. You could easily make several $100,000 a year.
She says she was once offered an exclusive contract by a client.
Came up with the number, and the number was $2.9 million for 1 year.
She turned him down. Which brings us back to our main question.
I don't want to be dependent on any person. If I were to take just a single patron, there would be so many conditions so that could preserve my sense of independence and freedom.
But in some way, this is a moral choice, isn't it?
Right.
There are plenty of places to work and make extra money.
Well, it's interesting because I mean, you said that there are many other jobs we can take that essentially serve the same purpose, and I mean, one often uses the term to prostitute oneself to these other jobs. I do that literally, but I don't see it as any different.
Which is worse, what you do or marrying someone because they have money?
Well, for myself, I can't imagine marrying somebody for their money.
Is there nothing you feel you're giving away? Nothing you feel you're
No.
selling that shouldn't be sold? She says in every way she feels true to herself, but she also knows the reality.
There are a lot of negatives, plenty of negatives.
Like terrified you'll be found out at work?
Yeah, terrified by that. There are many levels of fear. I mean, foremost, the being outed, being blackmailed, having a client who isn't stable, which I've encountered. I've been put under surveillance a number of times by clients who are just want to make sure I'm not talking, I assume. I don't want to know more about me. It's very exhausting. Exhausting to have one relationship that's one-sided, so to have 7 or 5 or 2, tremendously exhausting.
What's the hardest part?
It's very easy to become very lonely when you know that you are, to a certain extent, disposable. I know that if I were in trouble, that they couldn't protect me and they wouldn't protect me.
You know, I just am having a really hard time believing that there isn't suffering in you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe it.
Well, if I'm unhappy, I stop.
Were you abused as a child?
No,
Teenager?
no,
Drugs?
no.
Emotional problems?
Yeah, I think I do. I am afraid to be vulnerable.
Hurt badly?
Sure, yeah, and
Early on in life?
I have, and I'm fully aware that I'm being a wuss, sort of emotional wuss. It's significantly easier to have multiple distant relationships rather than one very close relationship. It's much easier for me to not be vulnerable. And I know it's not ideal. If someone asked me what would get me to stop, it would be love and a genuine desire for a monogamous relationship.
And before we leave her, a final question about the governor, who has been so much in the news. We saw that phrase, difficult clients. What does
Yeah.
that signal to you?
It signals a lot. I saw quite a bit of speculation about condom use and so
Right.
forth, and sex acts. It usually does not refer to a sexual issue or even a danger issue. It's usually a personality thing. If someone is deeply neurotic, sometimes, rarely, but sometimes it refers to a client who maybe has a unusual kink but more often you wouldn't say difficult client, you'd say this person has a very unusual taste for things.
Would you advise Mrs. Spitzer to stay with him?
Well, no, but not for sleeping with a prostitute, for being a hypocrite. I think that's my issue with it.
We are back at the Bunny Ranch, one of Nevada's 30 legal brothels, where all those girls greet the clients with all those smiles. But the beating heart of the ranch is the cashier's office.
You can come in here if you want. Good evening, world famous Bunny Ranch.
Glenda, who watches the clock, once worked as a nanny.
How do you time how long they've been in? How do you know?
See, like this lady here just booked for X number of dollars, and she tells me how long she's going to be in the room with that gentleman. So what I do is I set the clock for that many minutes, and when it goes off, you tell her it's time to reparty.
Every kind of client, every kind of request.
There's guys that come in here and want me to pretend like I'm, their 12-year-old daughter, and to call them daddy and them spank
The
them.
men with like the high profile, high pressure jobs are usually the kinkiest.
My first client basically likes to hump your leg.
Couples come here,
90-year-old men come in here.
women come here,
18-year-old men come in here.
everybody comes here, not just men.
Dennis Hoff, the owner, gives the team a pep talk.
Fulfill those fantasies. Be that e-ticket Disneyland fantasy experience, and create them, and you'll be rewarded handsomely. You'll have a 6-figure income, and you'll live happily ever after.
One of the girls, Shelley, and the client demonstrate for us how the negotiations tend to proceed.
Marriage are $2,000 an hour. for everything except 1,000 for half an hour, 15 minutes for 500. But cool guys like you.
Yeah, what if I make you forget how long the time is?
Yeah, I was thinking you seem pretty neat. And I don't always stick to my prices.
As we said earlier, Dennis takes half the money each girl earns and collects rent and a fee for food. He also brings in Katrina, an unsentimental veteran of the trade, to talk about negotiating with PTs, professional tricks.
You know what? I've went in with a $100 party and walked away with thousands.
Yeah.
Okay? From a PT because he wants to run a game on me. I own my game.
The girls insist to us that a surprising number of the men come in looking for what's called the GFE, the girlfriend experience.
He wants you to be his girlfriend for however long, he booked you for, whether that's 10 minutes or 10 hours. Kissing, holding hands, cuddling, everything.
So are you thinking the majority of them don't want the extreme kinky stuff?
No, they don't. No.
It's so much more than sex. It's so much more than sex.
It seemed unbelievable to us that men would pay thousands at a brothel just for conversation. Then we met Robert.
I gave her 500.
I know, that's a good start.
I care less about sex. I just want someone to hang on to and watch fights and watch a movie and live the cowboy life, and you'll understand. It's lonely.
What made him choose this girl?
First I look at the teeth, and if she got pretty teeth, then I go from there. She's so kind. I hugged her and she hugged me, and that was the way it was. Not a big deal. And I was happy.
Jackson!
You should catch him when he's laying here and he's like...
And what's the story behind Max, who's a kind of legend here? Max, the prostitute with the soft heart for stray dogs, says she's the biggest earner at the ranch.
Service with a smile.
She showed us Louis Vuitton clothes, the $1 million house she's building.